December 5th through 13th, we'll be in the streets of Paris covering the activist response to COP21, the UN Climate Summit. Lines will be drawn, literally. We are the people over profit for planet. Exclusive interviews, insight, and daily coverage of events on the ground. From tweets to marching in the streets, this is Act Out in Paris. Welcome to Act Out. 3 things that I want to tell you in this really quick intro. First of all, the woman that you're about to hear from, Osprey Orielle Lake, the founder of Women's Earth and Climate Action Network, an organization that empowers women and girls on the front lines of climate change for climate justice. Really, really awesome. Second of all, we touched base with her today at ZAC, Zone d'Action pour Climat, which is Climate Action Zone, for those of you who don't parlez-vous français. So this place is a literal warehouse filled with activists, artists, even breakdancers, scientists, and organizations from literally around the world coming together for activism as part of COP21. The idea being that you want to bring all of these climate change activists under one roof. And as you might know, sometimes the issue on the left is that we can't quite work together. Well, now that we're all in the same damn warehouse, people are working together. There's arguing, there's conversations, there's brainstorming, there's a media center. Again, there's a breakdancing floor. If you want to have it out there, you can. There's places to nap. It's a phenomenal area with everything that you can possibly imagine across the activism spectrum. And I have some images to share with you from there. And thirdly, just a quick update on what might be happening on Saturday. Saturday is D12, for those of you who don't know. It is the last say of the activists for COP21. The idea, of course, being that the politicians end their talking on the 11th, and the activists want to have the final say. We, the people, want to have the final say as to what climate justice really means and what climate action needs to look like. So, because of the events on November 13th, the crackdown on activism has been pretty severe here in Paris. So, people are getting creative. What I can tell you is that at 9:30 or so in the morning, activists will be joining together in groups of about 100 people per letter. This will make sense in a second, to spell out the words climate, justice, peace across central Paris. It's about 100 people per letter. Obviously, I won't be able to go to every letter, but I'll try to scope out at least one letter to show you what that looks like. And using geolocation on the phone, people will be able to tweet out and thereby create these letters. So that'll be a pretty cool action. The next action I can't really talk about as of right now. And then the third action will be at 2 p.m. at the Eiffel Tower, literally making human chains across the big grassy area that is right by the Eiffel Tower. So we will be on the ground all day Saturday, getting as much footage as we possibly can. And so for now, without further ado, here is Osprey Orielle Lake at ZAC. Okay, Osprey, thank you so much for joining us here at the Climate Action Zone. I know that you just spoke, so I appreciate you taking the time. Real quick, Women's Earth and Climate Action Network. Talk a little bit about that. What is it? What do you do?
The Women's Earth and Climate Action Network, or WECAN, our acronym is WECAN because we think women can, is dedicated to working with women around the world, especially women on the front lines of climate change, Indigenous women. And we think it's very, very important to understand that climate change and environmental degradation are impacting women first and worst. And it's something that is an untold story, really, of climate change, both about the impacts, but also how women are key to solutions. And so we're here at COP21 doing a lot of side events, both inside the COP and outside, to really uplift the stories of women, to make sure that they are part of these decisions that are impacting their lives.
And what role do women play as of right now, besides being the ones most affected by climate change?
Well, I think what's going on is that, whenever you remove women from sustainability solutions, you're at a great loss. As an example, between 60 to 80% of all household food production in developing countries is done by women. So we know that food security and food sovereignty are key to resolving climate issues. If you don't involve the women, it's not going to work. And they're also doing seed saving and all kinds of things around food. This is also true around water issues. There's a lot of United Nations studies that show that if you don't involve women in these water programs, they don't work because women have the local knowledge of water. They're the ones collecting the water. So we really need to understand that, as a larger concept, if we want systemic change, you need to include women because all over we're seeing in these social movements, these people movements, it's about localizing our economy, changing our current capitalistic system, having circular economies, working at a ground level. Well, it turns out that women have the social capital and the local knowledge to do it. And so empowering women leads to all kinds of things like local economies improving, our population stabilizing, health for our children. All of these things improve when you engage women.
So how do you go about engaging and empowering women?
Well, in our organization, we do it in a variety of ways. We think, again, it needs to be very comprehensive. So we do everything from climate trainings in local regions from the Middle East, North Africa region to South America. We work also in Canada and the DR Congo. And so education is huge. And then also just straight ahead empowering women. Right now, you can't separate out gender rights, women's rights, and human rights from the front lines of the climate crisis. So a lot of it is also about empowering women to use their voices, to gain rights, to be able to do the things that they want to do. So we also do a lot of advocacy work. We also mobilize women all over the world for large mobilizations. We just did a big mobilization before the COP involving 50 different countries with women showing what are their solutions and doing like a big online action to show what women are doing. And we think that, again, these decentralized actions are key and women are really leading in a lot of ways, including resistance efforts like in Ecuador, where women are really on the front lines of these actions to stop oil extraction in their communities. And I would say along with that, we're seeing a big wave of strength in the Indigenous communities with Indigenous women. And one of our big focuses here at the COP has been really all these different events to ensure that Indigenous women's voices are heard.
So speaking of that, because Indigenous rights are something that's a huge issue here at COP21 with the Indigenous Environmental Network and things like that, and you've also spoken about rights of nature. How does that fit into this system? Because the system, as you mentioned, doesn't even do a good job of respecting human rights. How do you fit rights of nature into this paradigm that we currently have?
Well, I'm very excited because our organization, along with others like the Global Alliance for Rights of Nature, Indigenous Environmental Network you mentioned, and others, were able to put together a 2-day tribunal here on December 4th and 5th. And it was a really exciting time to really bring forward all these different cases that show violations against the rights of nature, rights of Mother Earth. And why this is essential is, as many of us in the movements are saying, we want system change, not climate change. And so what are the systems that have to change? And what we're looking at is right now all over the world, the primary way that we look at nature is as property. And that we view humans having the right to have dominion over nature. Well, that worldview is simply not working. And so the rights of nature movement is offering this idea that nature needs to be a rights-bearing entity, that nature has the right to thrive and evolve and be healthy. Our rivers, our forests, our mountains need to be included in this conversation of sustainability because we can't live on a dead planet. So how can we change our laws so that instead of seeing nature as property, that we can, in fact, live in harmony with nature by honoring the natural laws? And the one other component I think that really relates to sort of our stance around the negotiations is that right now so much of what's being offered in the negotiations are what we call false solutions because it puts nature into the marketplace. There's the commodification and financialization of nature that says we're going to have carbon trading schemes, carbon offset programs in which basically we're selling different portions of forests and or now even soils are being put into this program. And we're saying this is not a system that's working. You can't solve this crisis by continuing to put nature into the marketplace. That's exactly what got us into this crisis. And so rights of nature is coming from a very different perspective, which is saying, no, we can still have human progress, but we need to do it in a way that honors the natural systems. And our earth is not for sale. And we need to also change not only our legal frameworks around nature, but also our cultural understanding of nature. And I think this is where Indigenous people also have a great deal to offer us in understanding that a solution is our connection with nature and honoring Mother Earth as a living being.
So what do you think, and Sort of wrapping this up, what do you think the chances are of getting to this place that you talk about within the current system? Or do we have to completely revamp and let go of capitalism, which is a very extractionary system? What are your thoughts on like total system change or working within the confines of the system that we have?
Well, I think it's a great question, and it's the question of the hour, isn't it? I think that we have to do everything. I think that we need to build the world that we want, and that's why we held a tribunal to really demonstrate what does this look like if we really had rights of nature laws in place. This is why we've brought women to the COP to say, what happens when you really give women the space to talk about their babies, their communities, their lives, and put a human face on climate change? So I think that we need to keep infiltrating these spaces and offering these new ideas while we also just build the world that we want. We really need to do both.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And where can people find more about WECAN?
Our website is www.wecan and then the word international.org spelt out, wecaninternational.org.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of COP21.
Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks.